Shalom, call Yahweh Bashem Yahushai Bashem Akash, double honors to the elder apostles and the elder bishops of GMS, including the elders that came before them that taught us His truth. Shalom and salutations to all the brothers that push the word in truth and in sincerity, the hopeful elect tabernacle of David, to the Aquat that are listening and learning, being a pillar of rest, the hopeful elect, the tabernacle of David, 144,000, the 1/3, all right? So, Salaki, I'm a little excited. I'm the brother Yashawan back with the WW3 Daily update. And I believe that Scott Ritter may be on Paul and Adrian. So let me take a look at this real quick. I think it's live, so it's a lot.
That's a fact. The F-35 will defeat itself simply by flying missions. It will break. It will be down on the ground. The Russians won't have to do a damn thing. Just sit back and go, how many took off today? 30. How many landed? 30. How many are going to take off tomorrow? 25. We shot down 5? No, they broke. 25 take off. 25 land because the Russians didn't shoot it down. But how many take off the next day? 17. And eventually, none. And the Russians didn't have to do anything because the F-35 sucks as an airplane. The F-22 sucks. Our entire arsenal sucks because it's all high tech, high maintenance, and it can't survive the kind of pressures that modern warfare will put on it in terms of sustainability. Very expensive. Our budgets can't meet what the requirement is. So, that's just the reality of NATO. NATO is fundamentally broken. It's too expensive to fix. And yet we have people out there. You guys probably saw Top Gun, and you guys both look like you're sort of my age or around there, So we were alive and kicking in 1986. And I was in flight school at the time, so Top Gun was the go-to movie. I mean, God, everybody wanted to be Tom Cruise and Maverick. I had a different name. Someday we'll talk about it. It was Sleepy. It's actually like Maverick. But I don't sleep in a cockpit when I shouldn't have. But the fact of the matter is, there's a scene in the movie where the CAG, the commander of the air group, is going after Maverick, Tom Cruise, and he says, son, your mouth or your body's right, your mouth's writing checks, your body can't cash. That's NATO. They're out there right now. They just had a summit where everybody's talk. They're putting out expectations that can't be matched by reality. They don't have the budget for it. Their economies want to. Great Britain now has a plan to increase their defense spending to 2.5% GDP by 2030. Some plan there, my God. But then they had to put in a caveat: if the economy can support it. Well, newsflash: the British economy can't support it. It's a free fall. It's a disaster. The British Army today, we got Copa America going on right now, right? One that big that soccer tournament. Then I guess in Europe they got the European Cup, and you see these stadiums full of people. 90,000 people. You could put the entire British Army in one of those stadiums, and they'll have 20,000, 30,000 unsold seats. That's how small it is. It's getting smaller because they can't afford it. The British Navy has ships that they can't put out to sea because they don't have crews. That's the reality, and their economy is shrinking. They have to shrink with it. They can't produce tanks. They can't produce artillery. They can't produce aircraft. They can't produce anything. It's become too expensive to have. Conceptually, they've conceived something they can't afford. Until they reconceive it and reorganize and reformat, they're not going to be able to afford it. They're just going to get weaker. The United States Army right now is running thousands of men short for their recruitment. So for the first time in a long time, even though Congress has allocated, said the Army's allowed to be this big, the Army had to shrink. Why? Because they can't fill the billets that are there because they can't meet the recruiting requirement. So they're shrinking at a time when everybody recognizes that if we're going to be fighting China, fighting Russia, we need to expand. We need to enlarge our army by 150 to 200,000. Instead, we shrunk it by 20,000 last year. It's probably going to be shrunk by several thousand more. And that's the trajectory we're headed on right now because nobody wants to join.
Scott, you are an expert in nuclear weapons and everything that goes with that. Let's talk about maintenance again because it looks like that our country has not updated our nuclear arsenal. And let's talk about plutonium pits for an example. Now, We used to produce, I guess, 1,000 to 2,000 plutonium pits. I think in the 1970s and 80s, we were mass producing those, and then all of a sudden, the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, shut down, I guess, the two main factories. They gutted the factories, fired the employees, and destroyed the equipment. And it seems like ever since that happened, we lost the technology to produce those, because even now there have been hearings before the Senate and the Congress. Why don't we upgrade our nuclear arsenal? And according to the latest reports, it's going to be 2030, and then they might be able to produce maybe, I don't know, 100 by 2030. So don't the nuclear weapons, our ICBMs, the Minutemen and the Trident, what we have, don't they have to be maintained? Because Russia is constantly upgrading their arsenal, so is China, North Korea, and it seems like United States, we spend $800+ billion on defense, and we can't even produce a plutonium pit that doesn't explode. There was a thing that happened in Los Alamos a couple years ago, remember, deep underground, that they were trying to produce these plutonium pits, and one exploded or something. They had to close it down for a month. So can you discuss the plutonium pit quandary, and why can't we produce them anymore? Because don't they degrade over a period of time? They're 40 years old now, some of them 50 years old, in our nuclear missiles. Do we have
Shut up and let
3,000
him
duds?
talk.
Is that what we have in our arsenal, 3,000 nuclear missiles that will not explode
Shut
because
up
the
and let him
plutonium pits
talk.
are so degraded? Can you discuss that issue?
Sure, I have to be careful because I can't really get into too much about nuclear weapons design. Yeah, it will put me in
We're
jail.
gonna let Scott talk, and then afterwards we'll close.
But no, you're 100% correct. Back in the day when we did, we used to do extensive nuclear testing, and there was a reason. Because when you have a design, when you want to achieve a certain result, you build a weapon capable of achieving that result, and you test it. We used to do atmospheric testing, blow it up above ground, but then we moved it to underground. But now, thankfully, we have a treaty that bans nuclear testing. And I think that's a good thing, because it's supposed to lead to a general recognition that nuclear weapons need to be done away with altogether. But instead, what we've done is the opposite direction. We're now talking about making more nuclear weapons. Now, we made a lot of weapons, and people need to understand that when we got rid of nuclear weapons, we got rid of nuclear weapon delivery systems. But the warheads themselves, the pits, the components, go into storage. And so when we come up with a new weapon design,
that was very, very, very important information right there. Okay. So that whole myth about, well, we got rid of, no, we didn't. We're just waiting for a new way to get them all the way over there.
Because people say, well, wait a minute, did they just put out a new B-6113 bomb? Yes, but the pit they're using comes from, I don't know, an old retired system. It's not a new pit. They're taking the old pit and they're bringing it into this new delivery mechanism. And you're 100% correct. Over time, plutonium pits degrade. They need to be maintained. They need to be replaced, or they need to be refurbished. Again, not to get into nuclear weapons design so much, but I can talk about things that Sandy and everybody talked about. It's not just plutonium. To make a boosted weapon, to make a thermonuclear weapon, you start off with fission that goes to fusion kind of thing. To do that, you have to have other components involved. Some of them are gases.
Yellow cake. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and end it right there. That's good enough. Hey, let's give it up for old Paul there. He's moving up the line. Got old Scott Ritter on there. Off-grid desert farming news with Paul and Adrian. Look at that. Scott Ritter says, breaking news, Orban meets with the man of peace. Biden crashes again. Interview with Scott Ritter. That's pretty impressive there for Paul. Such a yak. Let's see, what do we get? So let me see if I can find this. Again, AGA. Let's see. Oh, will come. I don't know how to spell rumor. Slovakia. I think this is it. Shell. Slovakia. So this is Jeremiah 51 and 46. Slovakia. And lest your heart faint, and ye fear for the rumor that shall be heard in the land, a rumor shall both come 1 year, and after that in another year shall come a rumor, and violence in the land, ruler against ruler. All right. Read that in the NLT. But do not panic. Don't be afraid when you hear the first rumor of approaching forces, for rumors will keep coming year by year. Violence will erupt in the land as the leaders fight against each other. All right, so that will be coming, and more of the same. Okay, no peace in the Middle East. All right, with that, we hope the elector edified. I just got a little excited when I saw that Paul had Scott Ritter on. So, shalom.